In Flip the Switch, Stories of Change, you meet individuals that contribute to a big vision, the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. It has the ambitious goal to transform our world and create a sustainable future for all. For more info about the podcast, visit we-do-change.org/podcast.
The time in my life when I flipped the switch was about 10 years ago. Well, even 15 years ago at this point. I was working at the World Bank, and I was in southern Nepal, the country in South Asia, where it's very hot and very dusty, and there's a lot of challenges. And I was talking to young people there about the challenges that they faced in their lives, and was expecting them to say, we want better education, we want better healthcare, that kind of thing, because those are obviously big issues. And actually what they said was, we want justice, we want accountability, we want people in power to be less corrupt. And a light bulb went off in my head, because of course the logic is obvious, but all of the problems that we face today really are accountability problems, which is what they recognized. And unless we can get people in power to be responsible for the power that they have, we are not able to solve all of these other problems. So challenges in education, for example, if schools aren't being built or if teachers aren't showing up, all things that contribute or undermine the SDGs, those are accountability problems, because either the schools are being built in the wrong place, or the money is going missing, or the incentives aren't correct for the teachers to show up, those sorts of things. So it's all about accountability. And so I set up an organization called the Accountability Lab, which is now 10 years old, which does precisely that. It works with young people on finding creative approaches to accountability and supporting citizens all over the world now, in South Asia, in Africa, and in Latin America, to generate and support progress towards the SDGs themselves, using creative and new tools for accountability. And I think there was really a bit of a movement towards this moment over time, to this light bulb moment. I was at the World Bank, which is a very large institution, very bureaucratic. And while it does some good things, I realized that it's often quite a long way from average citizens, and there's very, very little room for the average person to contribute to the kinds of development processes that are led by institutions like the World Bank. There just aren't that many mechanisms for young people with creative ideas to feed those ideas and feed their voices into the way that things like the World Bank work in a meaningful way. And so that's part of what the Accountability Lab does, is we fill that gap and we provide the support that young people need to develop those ideas and to connect their voices and their ideas to slightly larger development processes that are ongoing. So I decided to change something almost immediately. I left my job. I set up the Accountability Lab. At the beginning, it was just me, and I crowdfunded about $10,000 to get going. And I thought, well, I'll give it a go, and I'll give it 1 year, and let's see what happens. And if it fails, then it's been an interesting year. I've learned a lot, and I'll try and find another job. But luckily, we slowly got some momentum. I learned a lot from other people. I surrounded myself with lots of very clever people much more intelligent than myself, which I think is always the way to do things. And the organization grew. So by the end of the first year, we were working in 2 countries, in Nepal and in Liberia. By the end of 4 years, we were working in 5 countries. And now at the end of 10 years, we're working in 13 different countries with a team of about 120 people and a budget of over $5 million. So it's really come a very long way, and it really was a flipping the switch moment, and the switch has stayed on. And I was motivated in all of this really by trying to solve these problems that I was seeing around accountability and around corruption, and really supporting people with good ideas to use those ideas to achieve the goals that they wanted to achieve, and to achieve the SDGs, and to build accountability in their communities. Because, as I said, that's really what I think it's all about, and that really drives me. I think there are so many inefficient systems. There are so many people doing the wrong things. There is so much unethical behavior, and as a society, we need to collectively come together to push back. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to create the communities in the world that we want to see. So I suppose I am a change maker of sorts, but I think change happens collectively, and I am playing a small role in my organization and in the change that needs to happen. But I think what I am and what helps is quite persistent. I think change often comes from people that don't necessarily have the best ideas. You don't need to have come up with an amazing, new, completely revolutionary way of doing things. I think you really need to push hard at what you believe in. You need to refuse to take no for an answer, and to work really hard, which is what I did. And that seems to be some of the recipe I have found for the success of ideas and for creating change. And collaboration is a key part of that, of course. We have always taken a collaborative approach. I think one of the biggest problems with development work is it's often competitive and not collaborative, which is a pity, because we are all trying to achieve the same aims. So we are not jealous with our work. We open source many of our materials and our ideas. We want to work with others in every way possible, because we learn from them. We improve what we do through working with others. So that is a win-win situation, and that's certainly the way that we live our lives and try and do our work. And I think communities and networks like GLAC and others really provide an incredible place to share ideas, to generate feedback on our work, to take a step back, I think, for someone like me, from the day-to-day work of building accountability, to understand some of the larger trends, and also to reflect in a slightly different way with people from different backgrounds and perspectives on the sorts of challenges that we collectively face together, without the operational pressures that sometimes we might feel on a day-to-day basis, whether it's answering emails or managing a project or reporting to our board, whatever it is. Sometimes we need to step away and have some of these larger conversations, which I think are really important. So the SDG that I think is closest to my heart is SDG 16. Of course, as you might imagine, that is the SDG that relates to strong institutions, peace, and the rule of law. And that is really what our work is related to. As you know, the SDGs are broken down into sub SDGs, and the work that we do revolves around a lot of the sub SDGs related to SDG 16, including anti-corruption, and working on transparency and trust between governments and citizens. And this all relates for me very personally, because I've seen these kinds of challenges firsthand. I talk every day to my colleagues who experience corruption, who know exactly what it's like to live in a country where institutions of government have never served citizens, and where the breakdown of those institutions has led to violence and insecurity and poverty and inequality, and the exacerbation of the COVID-19 pandemic, and many, many other really really difficult issues. So this is, I think, personal for our team, and so we're working towards SDG 16 in a whole variety of ways. But let me give you one example. We started a few years ago in Pakistan, but now we also do this in Nigeria, an SDG 16 innovation competition through which we ask young people across the country through an open process to apply with good ideas to achieve SDG 16. We gather all of those applications, we pick the top 30 or so, and then we put them through a boot camp to develop those ideas. So it's a bit like a hackathon, but the ideas are not necessarily technology related. They are often offline tools. They are very different kinds of things. And then the winners of the SDG competition come into another program that we have called our Accountability Incubator, which is a year-long program to support activists and change makers of this kind to really supercharge their ideas and to build the communities and the knowledge that they need to change their societies. So it's all about innovation, it's all about new ideas, it's all about connecting useful stakeholders and networks together in ways that can build reform. And it's very exciting, and some amazing ideas have come out of our SDG 16 competitions. In Nigeria, we've had young people developing new reform efforts, advocacy efforts, networks of filmmakers, lawyers who are working to change policies and laws in specific communities, women's groups that are pushing back against accountability for, or lack of accountability for gender-based violence. All of these sorts of things. In Pakistan, young people have built networks of artists, they've built online tools to navigate government, tons of different really interesting ideas. And the great thing about this, and that we're very proud of, is that all of these tools are sustainable. So they are all still going, several years at least out from the competition, because we really try and work hard at the design stage to ensure that sustainability financially and in terms of users is central to what we do through the competitions. It's your turn now. I challenge you to do something good in relation to SDG 16 in the next 7 days. Share the outcome with me via email, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And there's more info on the wedochange.org/podcast. I'd love to hear about it. And what I'd like you to do is to send me your idea that you would like to be considered for an SDG 16 innovation competition. We'll see what we can do to bring you in and to see if we can support that idea to make it happen. Thank you.
Join us again next time for another story of Flip the Switch, Stories of Change, brought to you by the GLAC community. For more info, visit we-do-change.org/podcast. Flip the switch and make a difference.